sets the what and the why for the next 10 years, and then this group plan is almost like a little bite-sized implementation of 5-year blocks. So that's what the group plan does. It is meant to be read exactly with the strategy nested in. The group plan is more of an implementation plan of the strategy. As I said, the connection, there'll be 2 group plans as part of our strategy. The first one is building our baseline, because right now we have a fairly large gap to be able to manage even the most likely plus type of emergency. So the first 5 years is about how do we expand the systems, build the baseline, start really making good progress. And then hopefully phase 2 will be how do we mature that so that by the end of that we know we're going to be able to deal with those types of events. And just quickly, the development of the plan, I just want to acknowledge everybody who's had a huge piece in the development of this group plan. We expanded it really wide. We had a number of workshops. I don't know if you can quite see the detail in that graph, but we had a variety of different agencies. We expanded it out to the public sector as well in the science field. And we had a lot more community groups starting to take part, so we could recognise their contribution to emergency management. And it was definitely much more evidence-based, partner-owned. It was very much everyone coming with their views. And it was a really positive environment, and we've seen a bit of a shift in the dynamic of EM where more people want to be involved and participating in it, which is fantastic. So what's different? It's important. If we need to do something different, we need to make sure we are doing something different. So previously, plans were based on hazards. You know, you would do a plan for the earthquake, you would do a plan for the flood, you would do a plan for a pandemic. We've now gone to consequence-based planning because we know that the same consequences occur on a regular basis across the different events. We also used to be quite operational SOP focused, you know, like this is how you do it, focus on the operational side of it. Now we're expanding that to be more comprehensive, so not just operations, acknowledging the pre-work, the community work, all of those additional things that used to be just quite response-focused. And that leads into the output-driven changing to an outcome-driven plan, because previously it was, did you have an SOP? Tick. Did you have this? Tick. Now we're like, well, actually, are we actually having the outcomes we want? Are we seeing the change in behaviour? Is it better for people? We're also changing from agency-centric to all of society, so that's the expanding the dance floor that I was talking about, making sure that it's not just that little group of agencies, because we know no matter how much we like to think, there's just not enough capacity to do it with the agencies listed, so we have to go broader and wider. And then the one-size-fits-all singular process, you know, kind of connects to all of the operational focus, output side, agency-centric. Well, our communities are all different, and they have all different needs and expectations, and we can't do one size fits all. And so how do we make sure that we have that variability to enable that and address some of the inequities, because inequity or equity has become really important through the theme in this plan. How do we make sure we are giving what our community needs and meets that expectations, or adjusting those expectations to be realistic? This page just shows all of the depth of what needs to be in a group plan. It is really detailed, and so I won't bore you with what's in there, but there's a lot of things in there. It's comprehensive, and that's legislator driven. But that's also why we have our strategy, that kind of we can pull out and set that kind of overarching direction without all the noise, because these are very detailed plans. So recently we had sector consultation, so it went out to all those that participated. We had really good feedback, and most of the strengths of the plan, they all came through, was collaboration. We were working together more. We had variation of lead. Previously it was actually Remo will do, was often a thought, or a council will do. Now we've got other lead agencies that are participating in this and having to drive work programs. Indicators were something, clear, measurable indicators, so we can actually see if we're making the progress. And then consequence-based framework, people have been quite responsive to that, because it means we can cover a broader set of activities. And just the intent around supporting community-led response, we're really focusing on how do we make sure that we are recognising that and supporting that, because we do need it. Whether we like it or not, that is absolutely a requirement, and I think it enhances the system. The gaps, there was lots of conversations, not surprising, about capacity. How are we going to deliver this plan? We can't do it right now. Funding also, not surprisingly, came up. How are we going to continually fund this? And then just some of the details obviously aren't in that plan because it's a strategic document, and it's quite a different thought process. Some people were like, oh, I'd like more details. They will come with time. We will do a huge work program associated with this. But people are like, oh, what does this look like? And so there's naturally, when you're changing how we do things, people wonder what that's going to look like. The final part, which we are hoping to get approval today for, is public consultation. That will go in March till April, and we'll have some hearings set. I know we have a panel set aside in case someone wants to give a verbal submission. And so we just want to make sure that our community gets another opportunity to have a look at it. Anyone who couldn't do it in January also gets another chance to have a look at it. And we're just being honest and transparent about what we're wanting to achieve. And if you can see, that's the last part of the timeline. Oh, it's double clicked. That's the last part of the timeline. This has been about an 18-month project. So we're now in the final stages, which is just the approval space. It'll go for public consultation. It will come back to this committee for approval, talking about the changes and the feedback that we received. Then it goes to the minister. He gets to have a look at it, and then it'll come back again for formal approval. Hopefully in June is the plan for us to then get onto the work. Okay, before I go into the last part, any thoughts on the process? Hopefully, it's a very long and detailed process. Me little?
Yeah, just on the 10 March onwards process, the public consultation, will you be inviting particular participants, selected participants, to be part of that, or are you just going to wait for people to voluntarily come forward?
So we will cover off, and obviously we have a variety of stakeholders and lists and people we can contact. So we will be pushing it out to those people, but we'll also be creating the centralised kind of public space. It is there's a process that we have to follow, so it's a formal public consultation. So there are bits that we need to do to make sure that we cover that off and satisfy that requirement. But I would also say, we're going to be going out to all the councils, so hopefully share widely too within your councils, and push it out. It could be quite interesting, I hope. Nothing online, so I can't see.
Oh,
Sorry, I can't see online.
oh,
My screen is questions.
it's councillor free, but again.
We can allow her question.
Okay.
Sorry, councillor Free.
Oh, hi. My question was really to do with the fact that at our audit and risk meeting, we have identified a little bit of a risk of not having enough people to help when there's an emergency, whether that's council-based or non-council-based. Are we able to seek feedback from the public specifically around what can be done to help volunteers be capable and ready and able to respond in an emergency?
The short answer is yes. The long answer is there's a whole series of work programs in the plan that talk about that, and engaging with community and making sure that they're capable and what that looks like and what we need to support to do that, and building that capability capacity as part of some of the work programs that have identified in this group plan. So it's being made very clear that we need to empower and create that capability and capacity, and that's going to be one of the huge pieces of work that we want to be doing as part of this. So that's how.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Kia ora, thank you so much. I really am encouraged by this plan, and in particular some of the moves to the all of society approaches. So I just have a question around in terms of beyond the plan being finalised in how we prepare to integrate that more carefully into our organisations. Clearly, there's a capacity issue across a lot of councils, and in particular ours. I guess, what do you see as the broad steps in terms of, once this plan is finalised, how do we as governance make sure that gets embedded into BAU throughout our organisation?
Fantastic question, thank you. So what we'll do is, once it's approved and it gets signed off, there's a lot of mechanisms to do that, I guess, is the answer to that question. We do have a KEG group that sits underneath the Joint Committee, which is all the chief executives of the councils, plus emergency services, iwi Māori, a whole variety of agencies. And they, I would say, use that to, utilise them. They have direct feed into the agencies. We often talk with them about how we're going to do the capacity and create that capacity to do the work. Last November at the meeting, we actually put a paper to them saying, how do you want to implement this? Do you want to go softly or do you want to go hard? There were 3 options, and they actually said we want to go with option 3, which is up to 10% more capacity available to implement this plan. So, that was a really clear signal that we want to be moving in this space. So the KEG, we're going to be doing a lot of work to drive that. We do obviously LTPs through council, which is where we can start connecting in and doing that. We have our annual planning that we do to do that. But funnily enough, the next part, which is the indicators, is also where we can see how we are tracking, and that's where this committee can see whether we're moving along. Granted, they are long tail indicators. They're not going to show up straight away. But we're also going to do one of the work programs is also about how do we enhance governance, provide you with the right information so that you are comfortable that we are going in the right direction as well. So there's a whole lot of work that comes out of it. Once it gets approved, we'll do more detailed scoping, scheduling, and we would be coming back to this group and going, look, this is what it looks like, and KEG as well, bringing that through, saying, are there priorities? Because no doubt there'll be a priority discussion. And we'll be able to tell you how we're looking to progress. Does that answer you? Yeah. Thank you. Any other questions? No.
Was you done, Jess? Yeah.
Just one last part is the indicator questions. I did hand them out around you. I know they're detailed, but this is something new that we have created because we felt that we want to have a long-term view on moving the system. The system isn't going to move overnight, so we do need to make sure that we have a long-term view on whether we're heading in the right direction. There are 3 sets, one for each of our goals: managing risk, effective response and recovery, and community resilience, and each has 10 indicators. I guess what would be great feedback is, as you said, Mezi, this committee is absolutely responsible for the implementation of this plan and the accountability. So I just want to get feedback, if possible, on any thoughts on those indicators if you've had a chance to have a look at them. Any that you have allergic reaction to, as some would say, because these will be what we are using long term to indicate progress. Obviously, there'll be more smaller regular ones, but this is the long term, and I guess we just wanted to check if there's something missing, what's important to you, and what you might want to see if it's not there, noting that these will also be refined through the process.
Have they had it online, or is it just the paper copy we've got today?
They're included in the group plan
This is
already.
Just the blown up one.
Yeah, just A3. It's page 77 to 79, I think, on the group plan for those online.
Thanks. Just for Janet. Yes, Perry. Just I guess in response to that, and on these, I commend the kind of high aspiration, and I think it's absolutely what we have to do. Clearly, there's increasing amounts of events. I just want to, I guess, pose the question of we do need to upskill, up resource, and pour more investment into this space. Clearly, from my perspective. I guess the question is around that's within a broader environment of push for efficiency and reducing costs and all of that, and being at LGNZ Day, we had both, the All of Local Government LGNZ Day last week, we had both conversations. Mark Mitchell saying, look, we need to pour more investment into making sure we are doing this properly, and equally having other ministers say, the focus is on efficiency. So to me, those goals are not always aligned in terms of efficiency and resilience. I guess my question is, what would you advise in regard to, that within the broader context?
This is a really interesting space at the moment, isn't it, with all of the LGNC stuff that's going on. I think, emergency management has often been the poor cousin that no one thinks about till it's really important, and we know that. We've lived in it. I'm in it for 19 years. Dan's been in it for 18 years. Even Fran's been around for a long time in the EM space. So we've seen the lessons learnt over and over and over again. Our job as Remo and driving EM and championing for it, and the KEG, which I think has actually had quite an adjustment. Fran was just saying that was the most engaged KEG she's seen in a long time. On Friday we had a KEG meeting. We're just pushing for what we can, and we're trying to find those alignment where we can. But I think one of the things is, if you go to all of society approach or all of organisation approach, CDM used to be CDM because it was given that title. There are so many things that are happening that have an outcome effect, if that makes sense, that aren't necessarily called CDM, but they're going to be able to be measured on some of those indicators. So I think it's just being really smart about where we invest. We know that there's only so much to go around, but this is critically important. We've seen, like everything, we get trade-offs. It's part of it, but how do we make sure even that we're starting to even think about it in some of those decisions? Previously infrastructure wouldn't even consider resilience in its conversation. How do we just make sure that it's a lens at the very least to start building and enhancing that? I'd love to say that, we could invest a whole lot of money in EM would be perfect, but it actually needs this all of society approach, which is going to take time, because you could invest billions of dollars and you wouldn't get the outcome that you need, to be honest. So it's actually a culture change is a big part of it, and then the support that's going to be needed, which is going to be both funding and capacity and freeing up. But it's an interesting space, and I don't necessarily have the answer, but what we do have is the North Star that says where we need to be better, and we're just going to do what we can to get there, and we've got indicators that we can start tracking that, and it's all decisions and trade-offs, and we're going to come to you with those and just lobby for our point of view, I guess. And it's the joy of government,
Thank you, I appreciate it. Mayor Wild?
Thanks very much. Just wanted to talk about
Is your mic on?
The first page of the group indicators, the goal 1, managing risk. It's 4 of them that really talk about preparedness, so early action, risk avoidance, repeat failure rate, and risk-driven investment. There's much work has been done in this area over the years, particularly on infrastructure, and yet every time we have a big event like the storm recently, roads and bridges fail, pretty much because people either haven't prioritised them or can't afford to fix them early. So I just want to draw this to the attention of the elected people, because these are really critical areas, and I'm going to send the new mayors a copy of the Lifelines work we did now several years ago, which actually estimated the economic value of doing putting your investment into the critical lifelines early, and that's a really great report, which unfortunately is being very slow to being delivered in terms of its recommendations. But all of these things make it much easier to recover, and in fact you have less damage and potentially less human loss or damage if you've done them early. So I can't really stress that enough. That's really critical, the early actions. I have a question though on that early action. it's really seems to be focused on an actual event. And so if you're talking about, for instance, declaring, and this is something I think we need to have a discussion about with the government. So in South Wairarapa, for the storm in February, we had an orange warning, but in parts of South Wairarapa we had 500 millimetres of rain in 24 hours, and it was just a complete chaos. And we talked about activating, and we didn't. And then we went into the next phase. And the idea was, if we activate and nothing happens, we'll be seen as crying wolf. And if we do this too often, then nobody's going to believe it. So I think that's something that it's a bigger discussion than just the region. It's actually a national one, and maybe that's an area that needs to be looked at by all of the emergency management officers in discussion with NEMA, because that is a bit of a grey area for councils when they're making that decision. Certainly was for us, and we could have activated, but we didn't, because we didn't think any life would be lost. But we know a lot of other people activated well in advance. So yeah, kind of damned if you do and damned if you don't. Just wanted to say that.
That leads quite nicely, I think, into the next part of today, which is the exercise. But I think just, over the last 18 years, there's been quite a ebb and flow in terms of going early, going fast, not wanting to go at all. So we're probably in a space now where I think we're heading into, there's been so many precautionary declarations in the last little while that some would say probably don't meet the requirements of the Act. So I'm personally a bit cautious about that. But I think the key point is again, if we go all of society approach, then there's naturally going to be an upskilling and an understanding of the situation, and I think the community probably would direct us a lot more. But I have heard that communities are definitely seemingly wanting us to be leaning in rather than out in these situations. But again, that's a governance conversation, and I believe there's an exercise that's going to talk about that soon, because we grapple with those exact questions all the time. Thank you. And that Lifelines report is really good, so it'd be good to have that back again, Fran. Mine's in a paper copy, but it would be good to have a digital one. For me, it's the resilient question. As we discussed in our communities, they think we're coming in to save them. They don't have the water. Most of them can't do their own food, let alone have food stored for a week. And that is in our community, working with iwi and working with Pacific, because somebody has to help these people. And we're just not getting through. And I did say to Dan, I think as mayors, we all need to have a competition about how many water tanks we can sell or how we can provide them at a reduced cost. But I'll have that discussion offline. But I want to thank the staff for the report and for the paper. Really happy with it. I think you've done a great job. So any other questions for anyone? Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favour? All those against? Carried. Thank you. So now we move to, sorry, Janet, you didn't have your hand up, did you? No. Establishment of the group.
I was just voting in favour.
Thank you.
So, just before you get onto that, can I just say that I think this group should recognise the work that's been done by the wider Remo group, Dan and all of the other people in the region on this. This is a huge step forward in terms of our preparedness, and they have put massive work into this. There's been huge engagement, workshops, the whole lot, as we've just heard, and I just think we should note that, because it's a completely different animal from what the previous one was.
Oh, totally. Yes, we will note that. Thank you. So we move to establishment of the hearing subcommittee. So I'm going to move that, seconded by Ms. Zay. Sorry, Perry. Any questions around that? No. All those in favour? All those against? Carried. Our final one is the CDM Joint Committee statutory appointments. There's been some changes. I won't run through them all. You've got them in front of you.
There is one update.
The one update. It's not on the printed one, is it?
No.
Yes, speak to it. That would be good, Lucas. So it's been moved by Neil Wild, seconded by
So we received one update through Remo that we need to remove Alison Geddes from Hutt City Council as alternate recovery manager. So we're just adding that to the recommendations.
Okay. You happy with that, Newell? Yep. All those in favour? All those against? Carried. Thank you. We're doing a closing karakia before we move on. Okay, we will. We'll bring that up. Once again, it's another new one. Got the closing one? We're nearly there. Okay. Ki tāu te rangi Māori, ki runga, ki raro, ki roto, ki wāhuru, āhia ki āwanga, ka whakamangawa ki a tīna, tīna, huie, tāe ki. Thank you. Meeting's closed at 10:37. We're fine. Or we start the next one.